So, hi everyone, welcome to our FabTalks. Today we are Friday the 7th of October at 6 o'clock, and my fabulous guest today is Rachel. So Rachel, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and one of the reasons why you're here today?
Hi everybody, my name is Rachel. I am 35 years old and living in Bournemouth, and I suppose my story is I've gone from healthcare professional to patient, and I run all the social media that you see from Academy of Fab stuff on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. That's all me, so I run all that.
You talked there about you were a healthcare professional, so I believe you was a radiographer to begin with, weren't you? So how long had you been a radiographer before things started to change?
Well, actually, I was in my third year of university, so I was in Cardiff Uni, and I was in my third year, and everything was going swimmingly. I was busy, partying a little bit, but working really hard as well, and in between all that. And in my third year of uni, I was on placement in North Wales in Royal Hospital, and I ended up getting Campylobacter food poisoning. And that was my first ever admission. I was 20, maybe around that age. And it just, from then on, my whole life changed. I was in for a week, but I couldn't go back and do my clinical until I was 6 months clear of it. So it took 6 months to get rid of it. I managed to qualify. I managed to do my dissertation. I did all my clinical in the holidays, and it was just amazing that I managed to even qualify. But I noticed that my body wasn't acting like it should. So I was getting a lot more urinary infections. I was getting a lot more pain. Things didn't feel like they did before. So I got a job in Bristol Oncology Centre, and I was really career minded. I had this plan. I wanted to go work in New Zealand. I wanted 2.24 kids, or whatever the phrase is. I wanted it all, and I had a plan, and it didn't really go to plan. So when I was in Bristol Oncology Centre, I was pushing through, working and living with the doctors and nurses, and then as things were progressing, like the infections were getting worse, I was in retention. I had to have ISC, interstitial self-catheterizing, and then I ended up with a suprapubic catheter. So trying to work a busy radiotherapy department with a catheter was an absolute nightmare. And the experience I had at that time wasn't great, because I was 21, fairly young. I lived with a urology registrar, and as things were getting worse for me, I met up with I had consultants that I saw, but the doctor I lived with, the registrar, he organised a nurse to see me. So when they had to show me how to self-catheterize, which was decided that I needed to because I was in retention, I went there on my lunch break, and she didn't have time to teach me, so she just gave me the box and said, there you go, do it yourself and get Petros to help you. And I was like, no, I was going out with his friend at the time, so I thought, no. So he was outside the door while I was trying to work out, I'm 21, I didn't know where my radiographer is, trying to work out how to do that. But that impacted, my lack of education on that impacted, because looking back, if I had proper education, I wonder if I would have the suprapubic catheter less, and then I wonder if my bladder getting removed would be less, and I wonder if there was a knock-on effect. So yeah, he was helpful outside the door, but I then struggled to do it. I had to do it 6 times a day, and I really struggled to do it because I didn't really know. And when they did show me, I think I was in a place where I wasn't really working, and I ended up with a suprapubic catheter. So as that was happening, my bowel also wasn't working. So the bowel and bladder were just failing because the Campylobacter had triggered off something, and they didn't work. So I was still working, and I realized I had to stop it. It was just, I couldn't work anymore. So I left, and then in 2012 I was really severely malnutritioned, and I had lost my voice. Like I'd gone from fairly confident. I loved patients. I loved my job. I loved working in radiotherapy, and I was good with the patients. But when my whole life just felt like it went like that, and it destroyed me. But I went inwards, and stopped advocating for myself. There was times when I should have spoke up, I didn't, and I just lost my voice completely. So in 2012, when I had my ileostomy, I didn't want to know anything about it. They told me you need it within 2 weeks because I was really, really malnutrition. There was complete slow transit. And I thought training in radiotherapy and oncology and working in the clinical field, I thought I would want to know everything about it. And I just didn't want to know anything. The stoma nurses struggled to get me to engage because I switched off. And it wasn't till when I was on the ward when I'll say her name, Chloe. She was younger than me and she had a stoma and she rocked up to my bed, and I'm just really nervous about going in for the surgery. She just rocked up to me and she just went, "Oh, here's my bag. I named it this name. You should name your bag." And that was it. It was kind of like I listened to her. You know, not saying that the nurses didn't do a great job, because they did, but I was just in a place where I couldn't believe this was happening. This wasn't what the plan was going to be. And yeah, and then I've had multiple complications with my stoma being prolapsed on my ileostomy. And then in 2015, after 7 years of a suprapubic catheter, the cells in my bladder mutated. So my bladder had to be removed. And I was 28. And I just remember thinking, I can't believe again this is happening to me. And while I was in that appointment, they told me that I couldn't have children, but I completely missed that part of the conversation. So when I was on the bus back with my best friend at the time, he just kind of said, "Oh, you're a bit too chirpy." And he said, did you hear what they said? And I felt like he had slapped me in the face because I didn't hear that. But you know what? Nobody followed through with that. You know, nobody kind of afterwards said, "Oh, how do you feel like that? Do you need to have some support?" And that's what I would like to see happen in the future. It'd be great if, you know, when you're given so much information in an appointment, that a few months down the line, you go back and go, "Okay, do you need any help with that?" Because it affected me as my brother was having children and friends were having children, and I put myself to steps to well-being. But yeah, so I had quite an eventful admission when I had my bladder removed. I was in for 5 months because I was about to be discharged 10 days. And I had my urostomy and I really thought, okay, me and you are going to be friends. You know, it was a real moment. Like, I was housebound before with the catheter. I wasn't able to do anything. My mindset wasn't good, you know, and I can admit that now. I thought I couldn't do stuff that I could. Really, maybe, and I was just like in give up mode, really. So when I had that, but then I caught C. difficile and I was in for 5 months, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. Sepsis, bowel stopping, I had to be fed total perineal nutrition, and yeah, it all kind of happened. But I left that admission walking out, you know, and I went into that admission in a wheelchair. And what happened to me in that time was, I kind of thought, okay, now you need to embrace it. So I had not lived my 20s at all, just been ill. And it was like, okay, now you've got to do something about it and you've got to make it count. And that was when I started my blog, Rocking Two Stomas, and I had a website was started, and I then met other people like me. So that was the key for my recovery, really, was meeting other people like me, because I thought I was on my own. And a nurse said to me, "You should start a blog," because they said we don't really know anybody else with 2 bags, but there must be more people out there. And when I started it, I created a Facebook group. So we're called Double Baggers, and I started a Facebook group, and we have like now 600 members, which is amazing. Wow. And a lot of people on there have had a stage 4 pelvic centration as well. So that was like, and that's really cool that they've got a place to go and to talk to. So from somewhere where I thought I was alone to now building like where we can combine, and the amount of messages I get of people saying that, you know, they've been through similar things, and you know how they can get by just understanding. That was when it changed for me, and that's when I came out of the poor me mentality, and I thought, okay, and now you embrace it, and now you make it count, and now you give back your experiences. I've had some really great, amazing, beautiful experiences from being a patient, and one of them was in that admission for when I was in there for 5 months. I couldn't, because I was in the isolated room for that long because of the C. difficile, and there was no toilet in there and no bathroom. So what matters me the most out of everything, didn't matter that I nearly died multiple times, was that I wanted to wash my hair. Like, I just wanted to have my hair washed, and I just wanted to not feel so grime as I felt. And because I had PICC lines and everything, it was difficult to wash my own hair in the sink. So that meant a lot to me. So a nurse came in, and she had like always had her hair all beautiful and plaited, and she came in. I always commented on her hair, and I said, "Oh, your hair looks lovely." And I was just obsessed with hair because I just felt so awful. And then she came in one lunchtime. She had a bit of food with her, but she came into my room and she went, "I'm going to plait your hair." And she sat on my bed and she plaited my hair, and I felt like a princess. Like, I was like, I felt $1 million. That everybody that came, I went, "Look at my hair, look at my hair, look at my hair." And I kept it in for ages. That out of everything. And there was some other things that happened that weren't great, but that is what I hold on to and I keep, because sometimes the small things really are the big things. And that for me was like, she took time out. And another one is a phlebotomist, that even though you have PICC lines, you still got to get blood, which never made any sense to me, right? But I had 2 PICC lines in and still had to try and get blood, which was difficult. So she would come in and she would say, "Do you need anything?" She got me simple makeup removal wipes and like some body lotion, hand lotion. And that also meant a lot, because stepping out of that kind of, "Oh, what can we do? Can we do this? Can we not?" That was like a human kindness that really meant a lot to me. And the other thing is, when they come around the catering, you know, they do the teas and the coffees and lunchtime, and I really find that the food hostesses, you know, or male hostesses, like that interaction is really important. But when you can't eat and you can't drink and you're on a, you know, you're on TPN, I didn't have that. So having people pop in, and just, even if it's this one HCA was because he used to joke with me, and we used to banter a lot, but it kept me going. And he used to bang on the door as he was going by and call me Stinky Winky, because C. diff smells horrific. Like, once you know the smell, it's like it never goes. But he used to joke about it, and it was good because it was like talking about the elephant in the room. And yeah, so I left that admission, and I wanted to make something of it, and I have now. You know, now my illness doesn't define me, my bags don't define me. There's so many things I thought I couldn't do that I can do. You know, I have to accept that sepsis is also part of my journey. I've had sepsis 15 times since 2015, and I've been in resus, and I've been in intensive care, and I've had septic shock, and every time it's difficult. But I have only had one admission in 18 months, so I kind of hold on to that. Yeah, I kind of hold on to. And now it's about spreading what the experiences I've had and helping. I'm really passionate about co-production. You know, I when I worked in radiotherapy, I was a bit arrogant, and I thought I got it. Right? Because you taught all this, you know, in your lectures, and you taught, okay, you need to do this. And I thought I understood what it was like for a patient. Arrogantly, I totally didn't know. And it's only now, and I wish I could go back and work, because I would so treat patients differently. And I was because I was good at what I did, but I didn't get it. I thought I got it, but I didn't get it. I didn't really put myself in the shoes. You know, I've been through potential cancer where they thought I had it, and the biopsies and all of that, and I didn't quite get what it was like. I didn't quite understand what it's like for the family. And now I've gone through my own lived experience, I understand that process better. And it isn't that I was meant to be, you know, blasé about it. It was just that it just didn't click. And I think it takes something to understand, to switch, to make yourself your whole practice or clinical practice 360 to really get it, you know, and really put yourselves in your shoes. You know, and Jill Phillips does that brilliantly with all the sessions that she does, and it really allows to do that. And it's not saying that you're not a good practitioner by doing any of that. It's just you get a different perspective. That's why if I went back, I would do it differently. And that's why for me it's important to help share with different healthcare professionals in different capacities in different organizations on listening, on getting lived experience involved, on getting them in the room, on service development, but right at the beginning, not at the end, once you've changed the theatre and then you're asking for input. In the room at the beginning, all equal voices, because amazing things happen, and I've seen amazing things happen by getting patients or carers in the room. So
absolutely, that's an incredible story.
yeah.
Incredible story. And I think to be so young when it all started, I can only imagine how terrifying that was, for the, you know, how driven you were for the rest of your life. So to be able to turn that around, you know, is amazing. And I think, you know, just from the first time I saw you on Twitter, for example, and just some of the things you were doing, I was in awe of just the passion that you had. And then obviously we've met in person, and we're both now within Fab and things like that. But I think for me, what shines through more than anything is that kind of, if somebody was to come to you, that naive little young, and they are young, you know, I'm saying it only because I'm old now, but, you know, young 19, 20-year-old, that I know that you could sit them down and say, this is this in 10 years time, look at where we're going, this was another 10 years after that, look at that, you know, and you could, and I could just imagine how that connection would make a difference compared to, because as professionals, you know, professional myself in nursing, I can always say that I've got some understanding because I've been a patient myself many times. I've always been a sickly person and lots of issues. And I think until somebody sat in that bed and looked around in a different mind, I don't think you do truly get it. And I think as much as nursing embraces compassion and empathy, and doctors embrace the same, I think to connect to somebody who can say it's really crap, but let's see what we can do.
Yeah, and showing people that you can live a full life, you know, it was that as well. It was able to see that. I remember when I seriously thought I couldn't go abroad. You know, I've now been to Thailand, Canada, Egypt, possibly South Africa the next year. Like there's all these, but I thought, because I wasn't able to, but it was mainly my mindset, really, that even though, okay, because I've had a lot of sepsis, and obviously that was a concern for me, but it was also this pushing myself out of that comfort zone to be able to do those things. But see, having identification and meeting other people, what they were doing, it helped spur me on. Because when my worst time was when I had a suprapubic catheter, I was housebound and I wanted to die. I was in a really awful place, and I turned to prescription drugs to help me with that. And I was addicted, and I took too much because I couldn't cope, you know, and I got over that, and that is not part, you know, that doesn't happen now. But I was in that place where I just didn't really want to be here, but I was alone. But I didn't know there was a community out there that were other people like me. At the time I didn't realize there were Facebook groups, and that's why I'm really keen for identification, you know, why charities are for different conditions are important, meeting other communities on Facebook or face to face, whatever the condition is important. Because I know for me it's been massive in me changing, because a doctor could say to me, look, you can do these things, but it was me that wasn't able to.
And that's understandable, because you're trying to look at what your future was, and that future isn't the same as what you wanted. And sometimes if you've got an ideal in your head, it's really hard when mental health starts to kick in to look at how it will be different but still able, if that makes sense. And you know, that I can only imagine that I've been in a dark place myself for other reasons, and I think it's really easy to kind of get into that cycle where you sit there and go, nothing's gone to plan, what's the point, almost. And you know, to get out of that again, you know, just incredible, because at that point things could have been very, very different. And you managed to get yourself out of that. You found that community, you've built even more of a community, you know, and then it led to being live this year on a call, and you changed your stoma bag, you know. Talk about that, talk about how you felt, you know, how you embraced that.
Yeah, that was crazy when I changed my bag in front of 900 nurses with Terry, because that's how I first met Terry, was Coloplast, because I'm an ambassador for Coloplast, and that's how I met Terry. So this is how my Fab journey started. I met Terry, and she asked me and another osteomate called Steve to change our bags on stage in Copenhagen, and it was yeah, because Terry had never done it before, but I just went, yep, I'll do it. Now I've got a prolapse stoma, so it was quite a challenge trying to get it in, But as I was talking about urostomy awareness and what I was passionate about, and it was amazing. And then Terry and I kind of connected, and then that's where she then asked me to be part of Fab and to have like the lived experience voice, but for me to do the social media. And at first I was apprehensive because I thought, oh, I don't know, I don't work in healthcare anymore. What if I don't understand anything? I'm not a therapy radiographer, but it has brought so much to me. Like it Fab feels like it is a family to me. It's a tribe, and the support and seeing what other people do all around the UK. And for me, scheduling it and reading all the articles is just so amazing. And more so when it happened during COVID, like when COVID happened, and then seeing changes that were happening and sharing it was really, really touched me here. And it was amazing to try and help in a small way. I couldn't really do very much, but be able to share or connect people up or sharing what was happening for other trusts to then share is just amazing. And I feel like I've come home. Like I feel like I've come home and I've done a whole 360-degree turn.
Absolutely. And you do know it all because you're a patient and you've been through it. And I think, you don't need to know the clinical jargon, you don't need to know the medicalization of things, but just understanding and putting yourself in their shoes is enough to say, do you know what, actually this will really make a difference. And I suppose that's where the passion of co-production happens then, isn't it? Because you can see that there is co-production, that there is networking, and that's the thing that's going to progress our NHS and improve the services that are out there for our service users as well. And Vanda's put a comment in the thing about acceptance. I suppose I bet that's probably one of the hardest things to kind of come from an acceptance, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's funny, acceptance, because for me it comes in many different layers. So it's like I have acceptance of my stoma, I have acceptance of my illness, I have acceptance of my limitations. However, I don't have acceptance that I have to use a crutch to walk, right? I don't have acceptance of that. And that's something now I'm on a journey of going to the gym and possibly getting a physio and a personal trainer to see if we can build up my abdominal muscles so it can help prolapse maybe, and I don't need to use the crutch. So I haven't got acceptance on that, but I have, and I think it's just every time it's like a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Whereas, so if I wrote a blog post once, and it was what I would say to myself when I was 16, like before my bags, and I was awful to my body and I was fit and healthy, and how I viewed myself was horrible, was really not very, wasn't very nice to it. And then as soon as you get ill, you realize that stuff doesn't matter. Your health is the most important. It doesn't matter if your thighs are too big or your hips are too big or your boobs aren't big enough. It was about just my health, having my health. And I wish I was kinder, because now I realize, and now I say to a lot of people, like, enjoy your time where you've got your health, because there were so many things I wasn't able to do or have to do things differently now, whereas before I was so wrapped up in that kind of outward stuff. It was the inside. And I think for me, going through this journey of my health, is I've got to know myself. Like, I've been to right at the bottom and I've built myself back up, and I can say that I am resilient. I know that. I know I'm resilient because I've got through and start again, but I've able to know myself, and I know it's not what I look on the outside, but again, it's acceptance. There's like different levels of acceptance that I'm sure will change, and then I'll have to work on something a bit more. But when I got my urostomy, that was when self-development happened for me, and I really looked at myself and was able to be quite critical and honest around things that I maybe wasn't so honest before. So that has helped me push myself out of my comfort zone and able to ask for help. I still struggle with that one, but being able to say, yeah, actually I do need help with this. I'm not perfect, I can't do it all. Because ideally I would love to work full-time back in the NHS again. That would be my dream. But is it a possibility? Who, maybe not with the sepsis admissions, I'm not sure. That's a goal that will be there. I won't be able to go back as clinical, but then I like doing Fab. I like that I did a talk yesterday at Bournemouth Uni to the physios year 2, and I was talking to them and sharing my story. And I'm a co-researcher at Bournemouth Uni. I teach a bit at St Bart's. I do loads of different bits. So maybe for me, work doesn't look like like a full-time employment, but actually what I do is it's just my adapted way. So again, it's just accepting that I'm not where I wanted to be, but it's what I have now is like, it's beautiful. Yeah, I can't have children, but the amount of awesome kids I've got in my life is just amazing. I'm auntie to loads and I'm okay with that now. And yeah, it's just great.
I suppose that must have affected relationships then as well, because your whole world's changed. You kind of become withdrawal. So that must have been hard for family, for friends, and then the acceptance of your new body, for further relationships. Um, did you find that you got some really good support and that helped you build out of your kind of sorrow almost?
I think so. I think I as I've met, I found the identification, I had more support, but there were some struggles. My mum would very openly say to anybody if they asked her, she used to follow me around with some bleach, and because she just couldn't cope with the bag, and it was more she couldn't cope what was happening with me, and she wouldn't like it if I had them out, or when I was recovering from surgery. But when I started an IBD YouTube podcast, a podcast, when I joined that, she listened every Thursday. She listened, and suddenly she got it, and suddenly she was like, oh, it's okay for you to have them out. Oh, it's not dirty, and it's not all these things that, not that mum thought that, but I think she just was going through her own trauma, and it was difficult seeing her daughter so ill, and they didn't think I would make 30, and the amount of times I nearly died, she struggled, and to have the bags on me kind of showed that. But my mum went through a journey, and my mum now is like advocates and helps other parents, and she's but she will be honest about where she was, that she struggled at first because not used to it, and then now she understands. So I think it's allowing people also to grow and change. It's allowing those so-called awkward questions. I just want you to ask me. Yesterday with the physios, they were asking me some quite personal questions, but I wanted them to, because that's how best you're going to learn. If it just ask me, and I'll tell you.
Absolutely. So if you was to go back in time to that first initial kind of admission where things started to change your life, and you wanted to sit next to somebody and you wanted to remove the stigma, you wanted to help them, deal with it, what would you say to us?
I would say to embrace it. And I would say, don't be ashamed, embrace it and talk about it. Because I did probably feel shame around it. I wasn't able to really talk about it. And, now they've saved my life. Now I wouldn't be here without them, and I'm able to laugh and joke about them. I called my ileostomy in the hospital Mr. Digby, and I had so many leaks at night. It was to shout that name out at night, so I called it Bob. So it's like, so it's short. So it's just finding humour within, and I also have, for my urostomy, I have a night bag I got to attach at night, and my partner jokes and says, oh, you're going to plug into the national grid, and it's just that kind of humour helps me get through it.
That's amazing. And I think that's it, isn't it? It's just sitting there and just saying that life isn't going to be the same, but it doesn't make it bad. Vanda's put some amazing comments in the chat here. She's put, your path is different to what you thought it may be. And I think that applies to most of us. You've achieved so much, Rachel, and have so much more to offer and do. And then one of the questions is, do you still feel angry with what life had dealt you? And that's what I meant about kind of the acceptance of your situation, which it evidently has helped you to move onwards and upwards.
Thanks, Vanda, for the comments. I don't think I feel angry now. I find it really hard to show my anger. I don't think I feel angry, but I feel like now it's just, there's no point looking back. It's what can I do now? What can I do next? How can I help? I think feeling there isn't much I can do with feeling angry, but how I can I wish I had more support when I was so ill, especially in Bristol. I wish I had more support. I had to fight to get my catheters changed because district nurses refused, and I had loads of issues, and I wish I had more help. But now how I counteract that anger, I think, is by helping other patients, by helping other osteomates and talking through with them, and then sharing with them and supporting them on, not on clinical, just in kind of talking through the journey, and able to help that kind of helps alleviate that anger. But I accept also that where I was at, also how the services were, is kind of, I'm over that now. I have had therapy which has helped with that as well. I think they're able to put that to bed and just, okay, let's just, what next, what can I do next, and where my life might go. I try and keep I'm very positive now, but I wasn't always this positive. You know, that's why I understand when people are really lost in their illness, or they've first been diagnosed and have lost their voice, because I was there, but now I'm not in that place. And sometimes it's hard to imagine what I was like. And I was difficult to be around. I was quite miserable and difficult to be around. And now I'm not. Now I kind of don't really listen to my body as much, and I'll be off running and I forget that I need to rest and I have to listen to it.
Absolutely. And do you think the stigma has reduced? I know there's obviously a long way to go with that, but do you think that it is more accepting now? So, you know, because you see a lot more, don't you, with people saying they've had the bikinis on and, you know, things where they wouldn't have had before. Do you think there is a lot more acceptance now and a lot more reduction of the stigma to maybe say when you first had your bags?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely been reduced. More people are on social media. There's more advocates out there. There's more influencers out there. More people are videoing and posting and doing bikini pictures. And that is what's really heartwarming, is when you kind of are supporting somebody and helping somebody, and you see them post their first bikini picture or their bag picture, and you feel like, oh, it's a feeling that you can't, like, really, that's my bread and butter in all of this, is when you see those kind of things and you see that, it's like, yeah, it's raising awareness. You know, it's funny though, because I went through a stage where I got my bags out and I took loads of photos, and I was at the beach and I'd wear a bikini with them out, and people would come up to me and talk to me and say, oh, my auntie has one and she can't go swimming, you know, what bag do you have? And that was awareness. But I've got to a point in my own journey where when I went on holiday to Spain, I just wore a high-waisted bikini and I covered the bags, not because I was ashamed, just because I'm at a different phase in my journey. So it's interesting, I think. So I'm in a different phase now where I didn't feel I needed to wear like a small bikini with them out. I just wanted to wear a little vintage bikini and do that. But the stigma is definitely reduced, and it's great sometimes seeing when celebrities, you know, it's not great seeing celebrities that end up having bowel cancer or have conditions, but when they start sharing and it's more on TV, then other advocates come forward, and then people don't feel so alone, and then people that maybe don't know where communities are or there's help, they can help link them up. It's so much better than it was. It really was, and more younger people are having stomas, you know, and are talking about it and able to communicate. For me, I'm really passionate about the urostomy. Like, the urostomy is the forgotten stoma, and I was involved in some research around it, and that's a passion for me, because everybody knows about an ileostomy or colostomy, but not many people. And if they do, the assumption is that you're an older man and you've had bladder cancer. And there were a lot of young people coming through, and interestingly, there's quite a lot of young people coming through that have had their bladder removed and urostomy due to like ketamine addictions, due to other bladder conditions that come through. And yeah, and it's changing the stigma on that, so that you don't feel, when you're younger, you don't feel like, oh, you're not in a box. And so I'm all for talking about urostomies more, but more people are, and it's great seeing the stoma companies are involving urostomies more, and whereas before it was just concentrated on them two. I think over Twitter a few of us have sort of, and it's great now, so seeing that inclusivity, and it's just going to keep getting better and better. I would love to see it happen more with catheters. I think there's still a massive taboo with catheters, so I would like to see that change. But overall, I think the awareness is just going to get better and better, and you know, media helps, and the news helps.
Fabulous. So what's next?
What's next?
You've done so much. I don't know where you'd put it all, but you've done so much. There's so many highlights there, and you know, like I said, even on the Twitter post I just put the other day, you know, you've been an inspiration since I've met you, because you've done so much, and you know, just sitting here and being in complete awe of this conversation. But what is next?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I did
Enjoying
think
life.
once, I think at the moment it's just enjoying where I'm at and just see, well, what would be next is me passing my driving test, Danny. That would be what's next, yeah, because that's going to be a massive achievement when I do that. But yeah, I think it would be something along those lines. You know, before I said that what was next, I wanted to go on this morning, but I don't really want to do that anymore. For me, I want somebody with a urostomy to go on this morning, or with 2 bags, or to go, but not necessarily me. So it's kind of, that's changed as well. But yeah, I won National Diversity Award for positive role models on disability in 2018, and that was the pinnacle of, I just couldn't believe I won it, and that was amazing. But I feel like it's gone outside myself, and I think what's next is I like to get more involved with NIHR and research, and get more lived experience in research, and really get co-production done properly. I think that's what I would like to do.
And Vanda's put in, what about a book, maybe lectures, TV?
Yeah, maybe a book. Vanda, you can help me write a book. Yeah, possibly a book. And maybe that would be good. I think I'm just going to enjoy where I'm at. As I'm in a really good place at the moment. My life overall is going really well, and I've had less admission, so I'm just going to see where it goes and go from there.
And look after yourself, because I think you're at that pace now, aren't you, where you can look after yourself and just take it steady.
Yeah, definitely, and not think I'm going to, you know, I don't know, go faster, because I used to look at hospital admissions as a bit of a break, which was not the right way to look at it. It was like, okay, I just run life, and then, oh, I'm in hospital again. And actually, when I was doing the talk, I did another talk on Tuesday to social workers, and the professor was telling everybody that when we first met, we were due to first meet, and I was writing a chapter for a book, and she met me in a hospital bed. I was in hospital sepsis. She was like, oh, I can't meet you. I said, no, this is normal for me. Come and meet me in hospital. And she was telling the students, she went, I thought, I'm not allowed to do this. I can't believe. And I met her and another social worker writing this book together in bed in hospital. But that was my normal. And like she said, I said to her, this is part of my journey. I'm in and out. I don't mind you seeing me there. But for her, she felt really uncomfortable. And then she was all right.
That's brilliant. So if you've got any last words for our viewers, any takeaway?
Takeaway, I would be look around your department or where you're working and see if you can get lived experience involvement. And if you've got any QI projects at the moment, just start it now. Start small, and then you can start from the beginning and add in that voice, because trust me, that I haven't talked about some of the work I did with Bournemouth Hospital, but the impact you can have and the ricocheted effect you can have by just doing it, by just taking the risk and just doing it, you know, and giving it a go, and seeing what having a lived experience voice and co-production done properly, how that feels. Because once it's done, it's amazing, and then once you've done it this way, you will never look back.
Thank you so much. Vanda, have you got any last comments or questions before we close off?
No, not for me. Just to say thank you so much, Rachel. You are fabulous, and it's an honour and a pleasure to listen to you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanda.
I'm absolutely going to echo that. Thank you so much. There's a lot in that story that I didn't know, and again, it's just made me, you know, more in awe of what you do and everything, and keep breaking Twitter.
Yeah, I that photo that you posted on Twitter, I love it. That was such a good event. I really loved that. Was just before COVID as well, wasn't it? That was so great. That was when I first met you, and yeah, I'm so grateful for Fab. I feel like I've got, and this is another community that I have to access, and yeah, it's great. Thanks, Danny.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just keep flying, because that's exactly what you're doing, and everything you've achieved in awards and everything you've done is absolutely well deserved. So thank you very much for giving up your time this evening. It's so much appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side.